Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I'm so excited to talk to you about The Hunting Party. And I know this is your first leading role since Manifest. So I'm curious, after Manifest, what were you looking for? What was it about The Hunting Party that made it stand out and that you wanted to be a part of it?
I was kind of open to anything. Manifest was so specific. It was very sci-fi, and she's this cop, and so many extraordinary events were happening in that show that I was like, you can't really, anything else will be different. So when this came up, I thought it was cool because I do love profiling. I love psychology and getting into people's brains and stuff. And so this character obviously does that full time for a job, and she does it for very interesting, unique killers. So I just thought that it would be fun to go down that path and see what creative characters the showrunners would come up with for these serial killers, and dive into that. Yeah.
And I was going to ask, were you a fan of true crime before you got into doing this project?
I mean, who isn't, right? The podcast, or I grew up watching Criminal Minds, that kind of stuff, and so yeah, you want to know why someone isn't normal. You want to know how they got there and why they're doing what they're doing, and just because you don't see it, and I hope you don't see it. So yeah, I mean, who doesn't love a serial killer story?
And I've seen the first 4 episodes, and it can get quite dark. So I'm very curious: was there ever any moment where you were actually, as you were filming, kind of spooked out, or
The only time I was actually spooked out was episode 4 when I'm in the chair. I don't know how much you've seen, but I'm in.
When
so I get kidnapped and I'm in his chair being held as hostage, and they put duct tape over my mouth, and it wasn't scary necessarily, other than I couldn't breathe, but we were rolling, and so I had a freak out. It was because you can't yell cut, you can't yell for help, you can't really do anything, but I couldn't breathe. So yeah, I definitely had a moment there of panic. But as far as the killers go, I think the only time I was ever ooh, I don't want to see that is episode 9. It's dark, it's gross, yeah.
Well, jumping off that, because I did have a question just about the emotional aspect of filming something so dark. How do you kind of protect your mental health in between filming and just kind of not taking, work home with you? Because it can get quite heavy, I imagine.
Yeah, I think we work such long days on set that by the time we are able to go home, you kind of just leave it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a choice or you just do it, but on your drive home, you're just I'm tired, I'm gonna go have a nice bath and go to bed. So that's all I'm thinking about, thankfully.
And I also wanted to ask you about the physical aspects of it, because this is very physical. You're kind of getting into fights. You're in the in the field. So what was that like for you? Did you have to prepare more? Did you have to adjust, or was it just very seamless?
Yeah, I was super out of shape going into filming, so it was definitely an adjustment. It's also really hard to go to the gym when you're doing those long days. We had a tech advisor helping with all the gun stuff, because we did want to make sure that a lot of that was as correct as it could be. But as far as running through the woods and stuff, I mean, the only embarrassing moment was I told everyone I'm a runner, which I am. And I was like, this next shot's going to be no problem. And it was me running through the woods. And within 5 seconds, I've fallen on my butt and really hurt my back. So.
Are you okay?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah. But no. We had help. We had a lot of help. So
perfect. And also, there's a lot of kind of twists, and you really have to stick with the show to find out all of these kind of new details about your character and kind of what was going on with the explosion and the pit. As an actor, I'm curious, do you want to know everything beforehand, or do you not want to know because your character doesn't want to know and you don't want to kind of color that performance or approach?
I kind of go back and forth. There's some days where I'm so overwhelmed by what's currently happening in the script and making sure that I have my lines down or trying to understand it. And then there are some easier days where I'm I'm going to go be nosy to the showrunner now, and I want to find out what happens. And as the series went on, with the mystery kind of twisting and turning a little bit more, I did start to get a little more curious.
Okay. And so at the end of episode, I believe 3 or 4, Bex does help get info, because I was going to ask about your first love interest. She does get Sorry. She does help get info from his phone without his knowing. I just wanted to talk about that relationship in general. Like, how did you build it out, and kind of what can you tease about where they're kind of going to go from here? Because it is very, like, I ship them, but I don't know if I should.
Oh,
I don't know if I should, but I'm invested.
Very
so I'm very
interesting.
curious about that.
You are the unpopular opinion on
I
that.
am?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. He killed someone. He
It's
did
okay.
a bad thing.
I mean, there's so many killers on the show. It's okay.
It's fine. It was one little murder. I think, I'd actually known Nick kind of in passing before that. So it was, and then he nailed the audition. So going into filming with him, it was nice to have a little bit of like history already, even though I didn't know him too well. And as far as the characters go, I'm always like cheering for the history relationships where it's like they've been through so much together. I think on the other hand though, Shane, if they do build this love story, the triangle, Shane is safe and he's, very calm, cool waters. And so I think that it could, we have like the bad boy who murdered someone.
He had a reason.
Have the person who didn't murder someone. So yeah, we'll see.
And also, Bex is a mother. She did adopt that girl from the case where Oliver murdered someone. But I'm curious, how would you say motherhood has helped her in her career, and kind of, I'm very curious about that aspect of the character.
Yeah, I was nervous about that part going in because I don't have kids of my own, and then also it's not just like a 3-year-old; it's a full-grown woman, and so I was like, okay, how do I do this? And then there's some solace in the fact that she didn't raise her. There probably is a little bit of unknowing of how to raise an already grown human, but I think at the end of the day, it makes Bex more empathetic because one, she went through what she went through when she was 15 with her best friend, and then seeing it happen to this girl that she's now adopted, Samantha. I think every time she goes into something, it's like, what if this happened to her? And so there's a lot of empathy, and there's a lot of trying to understand people because it has and will affect her daily life.
And I'm also curious, obviously we're finding certain things out as each episode goes along, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot more. What can you kind of tease about where the mystery is going to go? Do we get all our questions answered by the end of the season, or are there a lot of things we're not going to see?
No, because then we wouldn't get a second season. There's definitely more question marks, but it kind of ties it up in a way that you're like, I see where this is going to go now, and it's really exciting. I think that season 2 is going to be even better in a lot of ways.
Fingers crossed that we're going to get it. Very soon. But I have to also ask, because I'm a big fan of you from Tracker. So before the hunting party, you made a brief, very memorable appearance on Tracker. Is there hope that you will return as Justin Hartley's on-screen sister? I know you're busy with this, but...
I mean, I hope so. Yeah, I had so much fun on that show, and Justin's great. It's such a lovely, warm set, and he does such a good job of like making it that way. And so I'd love to go back. Justin's a friend, and it's nice to play with your friends, and I love the show. So we'll see.
Yeah. And so also I'm very curious, going back to the hunting party, kind of what were the biggest challenges of filming a show like this?
Not sleeping. I talk a lot. I talk a lot in this show, and so as good as my memory can be, when you're working that much and you're trying to also like act good, honestly, I was like, I underestimated the amount of profiling she actually does. So yeah.
And I'm also curious, you're a smaller cast, because I feel like there's some shows where there's like this big ensemble cast, but here I think it lends itself to the fact that there's like 5 of you. So how did you kind of build up that relationship off screen and build that kind of, because you have different bonds with different people on the show. How did you kind of bond off screen, and especially because there's such a small group of you versus...
I'm from Vancouver, and so I kind of went into the show being like, oh no, I have to be the one to like bring everyone together and show them Vancouver. But thankfully, everyone in the cast is very similar in the sense of taking their space or wanting to connect. And so we all did our own thing, and then we'd be like, we miss each other, and then we'd all have dinner, or we'd all, go play a game or whatever it was. And on set too, especially me, Josh, and Patrick, we just spent so much time together, and Josh and Patrick are such phenomenal human beings that it really felt like I'd known them for so long. And then obviously Sarah and Nick are great as well, but I didn't get to work with them quite as much. But everyone had each other's backs, which it's hard to get that sometimes, so it was nice.
And also, you're number one on, you know, the call sheet, and this is not your first leading role, but I'm very curious, kind of, how do you approach it? How do you, like, is there a responsibility that you feel kind of leading the show? Did you learn anything from your time on Manifest, kind of being the lead, that you took here?
Josh taught me a lot, actually, because I went into Manifest still pretty green as far as leading goes. And so I watched a lot of how he handled things and conflict and all that stuff, and he just has such a grace about him and this pleasant energy that he doesn't have conflict. And so I was like, okay, even on like a really long day where nothing's going right, he still handles it like that. Okay, good. And so then going into this show, it didn't really feel like I had to do anything because everyone was just great. But I think the only thing that like I really care about is making sure that everyone on set feels good, because I've had sets where I don't feel good, or I don't feel like people want to connect with me and stuff like that, and I just don't want anyone coming on to the hunting party to feel that way. And so I guess just that.
And also, Manifest obviously was such a big show, and I feel like there's still all these fans kind of supporting you from project to project. So what's that been like, kind of getting to have this fan base that goes with you, and have you, like, what has been their reception to this show? Because it's a little different from Manifest, but still really good.
The fan base is so loyal, and they feel like family in their own way to us now. But it's I feel just like warm and fuzzy, the fact that they loved Manifest and then they're cheering for this show to do well too. It just makes me feel like, I don't know who some of you guys are, I don't know where in the world you are, but like the fact that you spend this much time supporting and pumping it up, it's like, it's so meaningful and lovely.
Thank you so much, and it was such a pleasure to speak with you.
Nice to speak to you too.